The Room Old Sins is a 3D point-and-click narrative puzzle game developed by Fireproof Games and was released on Steam on February 11, 2021. For those of you who don't know, Fireproof Games has made quite a name for themselves, specifically in the mobile game community for creating games within the Room series. These are intricate puzzle games that go beyond the challenges one might expect out of a modern 3D puzzle game. In games like Portal 2 and the Talos Principle, usually the puzzles exist in tandem with some kind of narrative progression system. So you solve the puzzles and the game progresses with the rest of the information it has. The Room implements this system but in reverse. The narrative is present, but it sits rather melancholically in the shadow of the most important aspect, which are the puzzles themselves. Old Sins, even among its predecessors, demonstrates a new worship for the mechanic that made it popular to begin with. The puzzles go in depth in ways that are faintly present in the series beforehand. I think this is inherently due to the nature of wanting to provide more content in a sequel. Fireproof not only provided much more content, but within one area of focus, so that no element is separate or out of character. In this case, the one area of focus is this dollhouse, one house but with seemingly infinite secrets, that with some time and varying levels of scrutiny and investigation, will produce much more revelations than you could expect. Immediately, we are exposed to a theme that began with the first installment, and gradually progressed in style and scope throughout the rest of the series. The idea of the mystical intertwined with the mechanical, a dollhouse that was crafted with concrete materials of this earth, but also while harnessing the power of an element called null, which in lore acts as an extension to the classical elements. However, we know that this null element carries properties that allow improbable phenomena to affect and control the environment we dwell and discover. The dollhouse, while rich in these beautifully mechanical secrets, are equally as rich in the mystical ones. I'm specifically talking about the puzzle pieces and structures. Like, you'll have an incredibly ornate dragon set piece, but also be able to phantasmagorically view the kind of dark matter components that allow you to make the reality whole again. It's incredibly clever and allows for some of the most stimulating gameplay ever released. I mean, you focus a lot, and you're confused a lot, but it's not so bad that you're literally stuck for hours. It's interconnected puzzling that entices you with aesthetic, captures you with a fluid execution of its mechanics, and also serenades you faintly with the background story that, to be frank, is only there for structure. As I said, the narrative isn't really the focus, even though the entire environment is based off the story. But that's all it is. The story provides the structure, and the structure provides the mechanics. This has always been the case in The Room, but has been ultimately close to perfected in Old Sins. The story is told primarily by journal entries that are placed in predetermined spots in every puzzle chamber. Apart from this, we get fragments of the story as we solve the puzzles, but there are instances where we can actually see live events of the story play out by actively watching these phantoms through our trusty eyepiece. In terms of storytelling, there isn't much. It's a story that has many gothic themes that are meant to fit the bill in terms of what the environment looks like. Other than that, it isn't particularly pleasing or unique, at least to me. I mentioned earlier that the game entices us with aesthetic, and I'd like to point out a specific element of this aesthetic that to me glues the entire game together. The sound effects are some of the crispiest, most satisfying noises that any seasoned audiophile would salivate over. I understand it could be kind of weird to fetishize these noises, but just wait. You think The Room up until this point was good, but for some reason the audio production was just a tiny bit sharper in this installment. Every sound effect was amazing. From the simple flick of a switch to the wet hissing of steam cutting through copper pipes, the detail and clarity in these effects not only contribute to the immersion, but also to the already deep level of stimulation. It's so ridiculous to me that a company that began with mobile games have evolved to the point where they are the gold standard of puzzling. I mean, let's be honest, this game still contains puzzles that are clearly derived from the previous games and improved upon, but as any good sequel proves, it contains so much more new and original content that you can't help but ignore the tropes and cliches, so to speak. I mean, they're not even tropes, that might be unfair. They're more like trends, just like the fact that I can't help but use the words mechanic and element in every video I produce. These are staples that stick with games, and sometimes manifest in fan service events, but in this case they're just touchstones that remind us why we fell in love with the series in the first place. Fireproof has been an absolute joy to see develop. They took one game, one focus, and developed it to the point of their own distinct puzzling science. They are unmatched in this regard, and I think all puzzle games currently in development should take notes. I really think gaming companies, indie and AAA alike, ought to study the way they connect their own world and learn a thing or two about focus and cohesion. I'm gonna give this game a 9 out of 10. For those of you who haven't played the mobile version, please pick it up on Steam. It is one of the best puzzling experiences you will ever get.